Bryce always inexplicably throws away the fresh eggs, but the next morning, the girl next door who secretly likes him brings new ones again. Until one day, Bryce's unusual behavior is accidentally witnessed by the girl. Only then does Juli realize that the eggs she sent over again and again were all thrown away by Bryce. Angry, Juli snatches back the eggs. These are fresh eggs that others are willing to pay a high price for, yet in Bryce's eyes they are nothing but unclean and filthy. Juli never imagined that the boy she had adored for years would turn out to be like this. From that day on, Juli becomes completely disappointed in Bryce, and Bryce himself is swallowed up by pain and regret, as the clingy girl who once always stayed by his side is no longer there. They first met in the summer of 1957. That was the first time Bryce and his family moved to this town. As they were carrying their luggage, Juli excitedly ran up to help. But Bryce's father despised this uninvited girl from the bottom of his heart. With a cold tone, he brushed off Juli's enthusiasm, but Juli did not retreat because of it. While they were playing around, their hands accidentally touched. At that moment, Juli was deeply captivated by Bryce's eyes, as bright and clear as the starry sky. She suddenly understood what it meant to be love-struck, but Bryce resisted such intimacy. When he saw his mother approaching, he quickly pulled his hand away from Juli's grip and hid behind his mother. However, at school, Juli did not restrain her enthusiasm at all. Instead, she took Bryce's avoidance and rejection as shyness, or as a sign that he didn't dare admit he liked her. As time passed, they became known among classmates as the model couple. But for the next 5 years, Bryce kept running away. Even though he clearly knew he didn't like this kind of relationship, he never rejected Juli directly. Until the first day of 6th grade, Bryce finally thought of a perfect solution. He pretended to pursue Juli's rival, Sherry. Although Bryce was always uninterested in the topics Sherry talked about, whenever he noticed Juli nearby, he would deliberately act as if they were very close. The effect was remarkable, as Juli's attitude toward him gradually turned cold. But this closeness did not last long. Bryce's best friend Garrett also developed feelings for Sherry. And when he confessed his own love, he also revealed the true reason behind Bryce's pursuit of her. However, this scene was also seen by Juli, and she regained her former enthusiasm. She even couldn't help leaning close to Bryce in class, savoring the faint watermelon scent from his shirt. But facing Juli's rekindled passion, Bryce only felt restless and uneasy. Ever since Bryce's family moved to town, his father had often made snide remarks about Juli's family. In his eyes, Juli's family were nothing but country folks. Their messy yard filled with weeds was a disgrace to the whole neighborhood, and Juli's father, who loved painting, was mocked by him as a poor and delusional artist. Day after day, under such influence, Bryce gradually developed prejudice against Juli's family. But Juli knew nothing of this. Her happiest moments each day were spent in the yard she loved most, creating art with her father. Juli deeply enjoyed the warm sunshine and the boundless fatherly love. But one day, her father suddenly asked why she liked Bryce. Juli answered vaguely, not knowing what to say. Her father told her that to truly understand someone, you must look at the whole picture. The whole is often more important than just the parts.
A painting is more than the sum of its parts. A cow by itself is just a cow. A meadow by itself is just grass, flowers. And the sun peeking through the trees is just a beam of light. But you put them all together, and it can be magic.
Yet Juli still had no idea what kind of person Bryce really was, nor did she understand the deeper meaning behind her father's words. Until one day, by chance, Juli climbed the old sycamore tree outside the yard to retrieve a lost kite. The higher she climbed, the wider her view became, as if a breathtaking painting was slowly unfolding before her eyes. The small town bathed in sunset looked so gentle and beautiful. The fields that seemed so ordinary in daily life now struck her with awe. The sunset painted the sky in a stunning purple red, then quickly shifted to a warm orange, like the delightful surprises on an artist's palette. In that moment, she seemed to understand her father's words, that the whole is greater than the parts. From then on, she often climbed the sycamore tree while waiting for the school bus, loudly announcing its arrival. But Garrett always mocked Juli for such crazy behavior, and Bryce avoided her even more, afraid others would think he was just as weird as her. Whenever Juli invited Bryce, he would brush her off with clumsy excuses. Even when Juli excitedly described the beauty from the treetop, Bryce was unmoved. Instead, he mocked her with cold remarks.
Well, if by beautiful you mean unbelievably ugly, then yes, I would agree.
You're just visually challenged. I feel sorry for you.
The branches and leaves of the sycamore tree danced in the wind. It was Juli's spiritual home. But one day, strange noises came from below the tree, It turned out that a construction crew had arrived. The owner of the tree wanted it cut down to build a house. Hearing this, Juli clung tightly to the trunk, as if by doing so, she could protect this piece of pure land that belonged to her. Juli begged Bryce desperately to lend a hand, but Bryce only stood there in silence. He could never understand how a tree could be so important. Yet at that moment, a strange urge to help Juli rose in his heart. But that impulse was quickly suppressed by reason. As more and more people gathered around, reporters were drawn to the scene and began filming. Still, Juli refused to let go, even as tears blurred her vision. It wasn't until her father climbed up the tree and gently persuaded her that she finally let go, choking with sobs. But this act of letting go also meant she had lost her spiritual home completely. Juli's heart shattered along with the fallen roots of the tree, and she could no longer piece together the innocence and laughter of the past. From then on, Juli became quiet and withdrawn. She often drifted off in class. She no longer went to the sycamore tree to catch the school bus. Instead, she chose to ride her bike, avoiding that place of sorrow, silently nursing her wounds alone. Bryce thought he had finally gained his freedom, but when he saw the sadness and loneliness in Juli's eyes, a strange melancholy stirred inside him. Still, Bryce was afraid that showing care would break the distance between them, so he forced himself to put an end to those feelings. Even after several weeks, the sadness in Juli's heart didn't fade. At that time, her father quietly walked in with a painting. It was the sycamore tree at its most beautiful. Its branches spread like an umbrella under the orange-red glow of dusk. The greatness of her father's love gave Juli hope for life again. She hung the painting by her bed, as if the tree would always stay by her side. As days went by, she gradually realized that the meaning of the tree was more than itself. It taught her to look at her life with new eyes. Thinking of Bryce turning away that day, she even began to question the meaning of her feelings for him. Later, Chet moved in with Bryce's family. He often gazed out the window, lost in thought, missing his late wife. One day, as Bryce was heading out, Chet stopped him and asked with great interest about Juli. It turned out that Chet had read the newspaper story about Juli trying to stop the sycamore tree from being cut down. He deeply admired Juli's character, praising her as a strong and determined girl, and he decided he wanted to meet her. But Bryce didn't take Chet's words to heart. When he returned to his room, he simply tossed the newspaper into the corner. Soon, it was time for the school science fair. Juli chose hatching chicks as her project, which was well received by the teachers and won first prize at the fair. The chicks she hatched were kept in her yard, and before long, the hens began laying eggs, non-stop. Juli tried many cooking methods to finish all the eggs, but eventually there were too many. Even the refrigerator could not hold them all. Luckily, a neighbor told her that many people in town were willing to pay a high price for fresh eggs. This finally eased the situation a little, and Juli would deliberately save some to deliver for free to Bryce's house. Every time she knocked on the door, she secretly prayed to see Bryce. Perhaps by heaven's favor, it was always Bryce's charming smile that greeted her at the door. Over time, Juli began to feel that Bryce was waiting for her on purpose. She even started looking forward each day to those few seconds of encounter, but Juli had no idea that Bryce's father despised those eggs. He thought Juli's yard was filthy, and the eggs must be contaminated. Stephen told Bryce to return them all, but Bryce didn't know how to refuse Juli, so he secretly threw the eggs into the trash. To avoid being discovered by either his family or Juli, he waited by the door every day to take the eggs directly. But the truth could not be hidden forever. Juli never expected that her romantic fantasy would end up crushing her self-esteem. So under the cover of night, she gathered her courage and suggested to her parents that they fix up their yard. Richard stressed that the house was rented, and maintenance should be the landlord's responsibility. When he learned Juli's reason was because of the egg incident, Trina could no longer hide her long-suppressed frustrations. She poured out all her unhappiness in one breath. For years, she had taken part-time jobs to help support the family, and at night, she still had to deal with the leaking washing machine and the vacuum cleaner that often broke down. And all of this was because Richard had a brother with a disability. To fulfill the promise he made to his late parents, Richard was willing to live frugally and sacrifice, just to send his brother to the best rehab center in town, rather than send him to a government welfare home. For the first time, the sound of a heated argument echoed loudly in their home. Guilt washed over Juli like a tide, almost drowning her. After dinner, her father knocked on her door, softly apologizing for losing his temper at the table. Then he told her the whole story about his brother. It was only that night that Juli learned she had an uncle with a disability. Later, before bed, her mother came to Juli's room to comfort her, speaking of her deep love and admiration for her father's resilience and kindness. In that moment, Juli suddenly realized that although life at home was hard, it was this deep love that was her warmest support. The next morning, Juli simply began repairing the yard herself. She told herself that she was doing this not because of Bryce, but because she wanted to beautify the home. Yet, this self-comfort could not hide the true feelings deep inside her. Just then, Bryce's grandfather appeared by the yard, holding tools in his hands. Without a word, he planned to help Juli trim the yew bushes inside the yard, so Juli accepted Chet's kindness, and they worked in the yard together for weeks. During that time, Juli was surprised to find that the old man and Bryce seemed like people from two different worlds. Chet not only helped her pull weeds and move things, but he also shared many of her interests. While working, they naturally talked about the idea that the whole is greater than the parts. To Juli's surprise, Chet fully agreed with this statement, but he also pointed out that not all people, when seen as a whole, are greater than the sum of their parts. In fact, most of the time the whole tends to dull the sharpness of the parts. His words stirred Juli's heart. She began to observe her classmates carefully and realized that most people were indeed less than the sum of their parts. But when it came to Bryce, she still couldn't make up her mind. The Cold War between them lasted a long time. During those days, Bryce accidentally discovered that Chet was helping Juli repair her yard. When Chet later learned the truth about the egg incident, Bryce for the first time felt the disappointment and guidance of an elder. Hearing this, Bryce slowly realized that his careless words had caused Juli silent pain. Thinking back to her indifference toward him in recent days, he clearly understood that this distance was far worse than her past clinginess. For the first time, Bryce faced his own heart. So that weekend, with complicated feelings, he went to find Juli again. But his evasive expression and insincere apology made Juli realize for the first time that Bryce was not someone whose whole was greater than his parts. Even so, she still felt grateful for Chet's help. But when it came to Bryce, she no longer wished to say much. Yet life is always full of surprises. Chet helping Juli with her yard soon attracted Bryce's father's mockery. With sharp words, he said that Chet was working hard for someone who had nothing to do with him. Bryce immediately defended Chet. But when his father learned that Juli's family lived frugally just to take care of an uncle with a disability, instead of stopping, he cruelly said it was simply because their family had bad genes. Hearing this, Bryce's mother's face immediately darkened, and the whole family gathering ended in discord. Bryce then asked Chet why his mother was so upset. Chet did not hide it. He told him the truth. When Bryce was born, the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck. If it hadn't been for a highly skilled doctor, Bryce might have suffered the same fate as Juli's uncle. Thinking of how his father had just treated Juli's uncle, Bryce suddenly felt suffocated and afraid. If he hadn't been so lucky at birth, how would his father have treated him? Chet quickly noticed the turmoil in Bryce's eyes. He didn't comfort him right away, but instead took his grandson to the quiet streets of the town at night. He told Bryce not to worry about things that hadn't happened. Soon they came to the spot where the sycamore tree had been cut down. Chet looked up with emotion, saying the view from the top must have been extraordinary. Chet cleverly used colors to symbolize people's inner selves, quietly teaching Bryce the truth. Good looks are common, but an interesting soul is one in a million. Those words pierced through the haze in Bryce's heart. The night, the emotions, and the tide inside his chest made him finally open that newspaper again. Looking at the story, Bryce realized he had never truly stepped into Juli's heart, and he began to wonder what it felt like to stand on top of that sycamore tree. The next morning, his mother suggested inviting Juli's family over to make up for never having done so before. Everyone supported the idea except for his father, who poured cold water on it as usual. Yet Bryce himself felt an unexpected anticipation. He began thinking about Juli more often, flipping through the newspaper with her photo again and again. Even in class, his gaze unconsciously drifted toward her. The quiet feelings growing in his heart made him wonder if he really did like Juli. When he told Garrett about it, Garrett thought Bryce had completely lost his mind. Bryce spoke earnestly about how much he cared for Juli and how much he had changed, but Garrett dismissed it, saying Bryce was only acting guilty because of the egg incident. When Bryce mentioned Juli's disabled uncle, Garrett was even more ruthless. He mocked Juli's family as if they had bad genes, and even hinted that Juli was no different from her uncle. Bryce froze when he heard this. He wanted to refute it, but what came out was a false agreement. After school that day, Bryce didn't walk home with Garrett, and at last, he understood his true feelings. But this realization came too late. Because that conversation in the library had been overheard by Juli, who was hidden behind the shelves. In that moment, Juli was completely disappointed. Behind the sadness was her firm decision to give up on Bryce. At the dinner party, Bryce turned his closet upside down to find his best shirt. When he eagerly went to greet Juli, she responded with undisguised coldness. After that, she turned away without hesitation, joining others to talk about perpetual motion, leaving Bryce standing there in a daze. Soon it was time for dinner. Bryce hurried to explain himself to Juli.
It was wrong what Garrett said. I know it.
Well, did you know it was wrong when he said it?
Yeah. wanted to punch him, but we were in the library.
So instead you just agreed with him and you laughed.
Yeah.
Then that makes you a coward.
Across the table, they sat facing each other, but exchanged no polite words. On the surface, the atmosphere seemed peaceful, until his father mentioned the sycamore tree outside their gate in a dismissive tone. Then his father turned to Julie's twin brothers, who were about to graduate high school, and mocked them for not liking school. But in fact, they had already received acceptance letters from several music colleges because of their talent. When his father heard about music, he finally stopped the sarcasm. It turned out that when he was young, he too had dreamed of music. But the harshness of reality locked away those dreams. Bryce quickly sensed that beneath his father's sharp exterior was hidden sorrow, a vulnerability he rarely showed. After dinner, Julie walked up to Bryce. She calmly apologized for her earlier attitude and also thanked his family for their hospitality. Her distant tone made Bryce realize he was no longer the boy who could make Julie's heart flutter. But not long after Julie's family left, his father's bad temper returned. He mocked that Julie's family could never afford to send both brothers to college. Bryce's sister tried to argue back but was silenced with a slap. Bryce witnessed everything. That night, his mind replayed his father's expression at the dinner table. He finally realized that his father's sharpness and cruelty were only a cover for his own weakness. At that moment, Bryce understood that he must break free of this shadow if he ever wanted the strength to protect the people and feelings that truly mattered to him. Not long after, the school held a charity lunch auction. Boys would prepare lunch baskets, and girls could bid to win the chance to share a meal with them. At first, Bryce had no interest at all, but when he heard Julie would be there, he found himself unexpectedly looking forward to it. At the same school, Julie forced herself not to think about Bryce, but her rival Sherry came to her uninvited, boasting that she planned to bid for Bryce. Hearing this, Julie still felt a twinge of jealousy. As the auction approached, Julie looked at the money she had saved from selling eggs. After much hesitation, she put it away, telling herself that if she didn't have enough money, she would never bid for Bryce's lunch. But as soon as she stepped out the door, a neighbor stopped her, paying her 2 months in advance for eggs. Though Julie tried hard to refuse, she couldn't overcome their enthusiasm. It felt as if fate itself was gently pulling the strings between her and Bryce. When the auction began, Bryce stood on stage full of hope and nervousness. He desperately wished Julie would bid for him, but instead, Julie used $8 to win the lunch of a shy, awkward boy in front of him. Sherry, on the other hand, paid $50, the highest bid, to have lunch with Bryce. During the meal, Bryce faced Sherry's bright smile, but his eyes kept drifting toward Julie behind her. Julie looked calm on the surface, but inside her heart was tied to Bryce's every move. At that moment, Bryce could no longer hold back the feelings inside him. He walked over and took Julie's hand. Without hesitation, he leaned in to kiss her. It was the first time Bryce ever tried to stand up for Julie. But he still didn't understand that mutual respect is the foundation of real love. Julie ran home in anger, deciding never to pay attention to Bryce again. But Bryce seemed bewitched, chasing after her again and again. No matter how hard he tried, Julie refused to see him. 2 days later, Bryce finally quieted down. But just as Julie was about to enjoy a peaceful afternoon, she suddenly saw Bryce digging a hole in her yard. She stormed over to confront him, but her father stopped her. He explained that Bryce was doing it with his permission. When her emotions settled, Julie realized Bryce was holding a small tree.
Is it a... I didn't really need to ask. I could tell from the shape of the leaves, from the texture of the trunk. It was a sycamore tree.
When she walked out of the door, I thought back to the first time I saw her. How could anybody, ever, have wanted to run away from Julie Baker?
Do you need some help?
Yeah.
They touched hands once again. That electric feeling carried them back to the summer when they first met. They had started with youthful misunderstandings and gone through hesitation and distance. But it was exactly these awkward feelings that taught them to understand and to cherish. In that moment, love was no longer about words. It was about the warmth of action, the persistence of quiet protection. Flipped shows us that love is like youth, tender and pure, sometimes confusing, but always guiding us to discover the brightest light in our ordinary days. Those tiny sparks of affection and small acts of care will become the warmest memories in our hearts. May everyone, on their journey of growing up, meet the one who makes your heart skip a beat and the one you wish to treat with gentleness.